It's that time again. It's another Stark Dark Open series. After the success of the first one, they're hosting a second one. Once again, doing standard and retro, this time on November 1st and November 2nd. It's going to be in Illinois at Impact Gaming Center. And if you want to find out more info as we get closer to the date of the tournaments, check out this link. Welcome back, everybody. I've got a very special retro decklist profile for you today because not only are we using universes.cards, but this is one of the first characters I ever played and took to a tournament. I'm deciding to play my one dot, but we are still doing the stacker my gimmick here. So as you can see, I've got the full suite of my's, and I won't go into too much detail about them because this one over here, this third one, the air one, or I guess it's my two dot. You're not going to be activating the abilities on her too often. She requires you to like add two cards from your hand to your card pool. Then your opponent gets to pick one. If it's an attack, you get benefits. If not, you kind of don't. And then she also wants to commit to draw two cards. So sometimes she's like your wheel spinning character when you're not really popping off. Or if you really think that the seven hand size is really good for a matchup because you got to see very specific cards very quickly, maybe that would be the choice. But we're going to start with my one. She's a very simple character. Response after your attack deals 4 or more damage, you gain 2 health. Playable while committed. Why are we playable while committed? Because we have enhanced commit. Your attack gets plus 3 damage and plus 3 speed. So that is incredibly powerful, especially in the early game. And that's how we're going to get a lot of our characters. We're going to be using the gauge keyword primarily to go and fish these characters out of our deck, out of our discard pile, and build them. And then once we have a bunch of characters, we have my 3 dot. This is the my Rev It Up retro promo. She has form, lose X vitality for the rest of this turn. Your attacks get plus X damage and plus X speed. X equals the number of characters in your staging area. So you do have to have that much health. So the life gaining is kind of important because you have to be able to pay that much life. But every time you play an attack while this Maya is stacked, you're going to gain 1 back. And then every time you deal damage, 4 or more damage at least, you're going to gain 2 back. So you do got to keep your health total up a bit, which is why we, of course, got my boy Templar in there. We're playing a life deck, so you know we're going to have Templar. You know we're going to have Revoke. We don't have a ton of space for actions because of how many characters we're playing, but these are 2 absolute powerhouses of the format and really just part of the joys of playing the format. Next up, we have the assets. We have 1 Albion. I would like to include more of this card, but it really only pops off when you are stacked up. But it gives your attacks gauge 3. So that's really cool. If you already have a second character, you get -2 difficulty when you commit it and +2 damage. And then you can commit it on your rival's turn to add a character card from your stage to your hand and then change the zone of this attack. So blocking with characters is something you're going to see from this deck pretty often. Tattered costume, canceling actions is good. Military airship, that's a staple in every format. Team women fighters is very cool here because Mai gets to form commit one of your rival's foundations, which is very strong, but it also has after you gain vitality, reveal the top card of your deck. So you're going to pay a bunch of vitality with this Mai. Every time you play an attack, you're going to gain vitality back. And then if you do gain that vitality back, you get to peep the next card in your deck, whether you want to draw it or check it, which is a very strong late game combo. This card is so surprisingly good, I would say. It doesn't seem like it has a ton going on, but when you have the right synergies, it makes playing the game easier, and that's always a nice thing. Speaking of playing the game easier, Swordfish indicates an attack. It's pretty simple. The attack lineup. So you're going to see a lot of gauge attacks. We have 2 that are not gauge attacks, but Bloodthirst is a honorary gauge attack because it combos a gauge attack. And then the combo is just to add a character card that shares a name with your starting character from your discard pile to your stage. So you effectively build that character. So this one is kind of like an auto build, but it's a 3 low 3, so it's not super impressive, which kind of sucks. But, you know, just playing an attack on a 4 and getting to auto stack is worth it. Graceful Rouge is our reversal gauge attack. This one's probably the most important attack for getting stacked because it's way harder to deal with a 6 low 8 that gains stun 2 on the rival's turn. And then if it deals damage, the next card you play ignores progressive difficulty. So you're going to be pumping the stats on this one with your character early on in the game to get the ball rolling. So you get those +3, +3, +4, +4s stacked up really nice and quick. Chaos Scissors is another one that's really funny here. Chaos Scissors says there's at least one character in your removed from game pile gets -1 difficulty. So that's kind of neat. But the really good thing here is the first E. Your rival has to reveal a low block as an additional cost to block this high attack, and then the zone can't be changed. So that's really cool. That kind of leaves a stranded low block in the rival's hand if you've already played your Bloodthirst or your Rouge for the turn, and it can really trick people up later on in the game. It also has decent stats, right? You know, wear speed and damage well. And then Fanatical Purification. This one is a 3 high for 6. It's a 6 stiff, which isn't super impressive, but it's got gauge 6, and it has the first multiple copy of this attack gets gauge 1. So the multiple copy will be basically a blank 3 high for 6 that also has gauge 1. So if it deals at least 1 damage, you get a character. And then enhanced card pool flip, seal all cards in your opponent's card pool. This one is really nice to block with because if your rival doesn't immediately play all the abilities on their attack, if it's not a blitz attack, basically, you can seal the current attack. This also seals things like reduction, which is really strong in the format. It can seal like a citywide rampage to prevent the stats on that. So a lot of really, really cute stuff you can actually do. That enhance usually throws people off, but it's not the most powerhouse defensive ability. But the main thing is this is our win condition because of the multiple 2. Once we get 2 momentum and we get like 3 or 4 characters stacked, that is +3, +3 to each multiple copy. And then our character will give 3/3 to, you know, probably the main, you know, first version of the attack to really put the squeeze on the opponent. So this is your win condition. This is also a great way to get stacked to kind of go over the top with stats. So very cool stuff. Don't forget, you don't have to first form with this mod. You can stack 2 or 3 characters in a turn, you know, with your first attack or 2, and then form with her and get even bigger benefits. So it's not a first form. And then the last attack, the non-gauge attack here is Iron Knuckle. Iron Knuckle is really just numbers. It's just big, big numbers. So if your opponent blocks this attack, you seal their block. So it's really cool as a poke. It's really nice as, you know, the middle ground, I guess, as you're setting up for that big multiple swing from Fanatical Purification. You know, prevents your opponent from breakering you and stuff like that. But it also gets 1 speed and 1 damage for each character card in your staging area. So it basically doubles up on this Mai's effect. And historically, characters that gauge, you know, 3+ characters into their staging area really love to have Iron Knuckle as a cleanup attack. It's low difficulty. It's got a good block mod. You know, early on in the game, it's not super impressive, but it's safe, right? It has that seal property, so your opponent can't give you like a huge breaker or hit you with, you know, some weird mix up that makes you discard a card or whatever crazy block trick they have. So very cool stuff. But the attack lamp is just basically give me good stats in the right places, right on the opponent's turn, when they've only got 1 card in hand, when they don't have 3 blocks in hand to get those characters stacked up. So what are we doing with the foundations? Well, we do have a 2 check. Chaos Scissors is a 2 check. So we gotta rely on some pretty strong spam here, and release is absolutely bonkers. I forget this card's legal in retro all the time because this card is absolutely insane. It helps you play defense so well, and then Surprising Skill is going to protect those releases. Moment of Rest is cool. If you've never seen this one, you can't do the response on it, which is frustrating, but you'll see with our next spam foundation that doesn't matter too much. But you can enhance give any attack gauge. So even if it already has gauge, you can give it a second instance of gauge, and you can get 2 characters off 1 attack if it deals at least its printed damage. So I think that's really cool. I think that's worth a 1/5. But the real star here is Desperate Plea, because after you block with a character card, you can build it. You can just build it face up. After you block, build the card you blocked with face up. So that's going to be the primary way that you're going to unclog your hand and get these extra Mai's out of your hand and stack. And it's going to clear the progressive difficulty for when you try to play your reversal with Graceful Rouge, and that's pretty cool. Quick and precise E-commit, your attack gets 1 speed and stun 1. This is going to help you land those reversals. This is going to help you set up your turn. You know, you typically want to do all your quick and precise on a Graceful Rouge, commit your opponent out, and then when it comes back to your turn, these quick and precises are going to stun out the last bit of foundations that they built and help you force those early attacks through. Street Hero, it's the water tune struggling with studies. Guardian and Angel of Chinatown, these are 2 really great defensive powerhouses. A really strong way to combat Gauge is just to reduce the damage of the attacks, because they have to usually deal at least their printed damage. Some of these are only half, though. Like Graceful Rouge, you only have to deal 3, and it is a 5 damage printed, but these other ones, they have to deal 6 to get the Gauge going. So you're going to want to protect the damage on these moves. All-Powerful Sorcerer says, R-Commit Flip, discard 1 character card. After an enhance ability on a non-character card is played, cancels its effects. It's pretty strong. You're probably always going to have like a spare character in hand. But it also has enhance once per turn, discard 1 card with a printed control 6, draw a card. So if you got too many characters, this is a way to filter them out. Next up, sorry, this is my first time doing Universes.cards. It like goes back to the top every time. Next up, we got Herald of Germania. This one is like Moment of Rest that you can play, but it's only on your turn. So response to your turn flip. After you play a character card you could normally attach to your character, add it to your stage. Pretty simple. Caught Red-Handed cancels draw abilities, very strong. Passing the torch, come on, baby. This one's a powerhouse. Young Mercenary is a cool little one of it. It stops your opponent from messing with difficulties, which used to stop Breaker. So this card used to be a lot better. But the main thing is you can destroy a committed foundation, then your rival commits one. So when you're swinging for game, when you're playing those really big multiple attacks and you've committed everything out, this basically acts as like a little stun one. Like I sacrifice 1, you stun 1. Over the top, super essential if you're playing any 2-check deck on these symbols, or pretty much any deck on these symbols. It's just a free foundation build. It's a 2 diff. It doesn't count towards progressive difficulty. Later on in the game, you can add it to your card pool to not count towards progressive difficulty and peek at your next check, or, you know, a Hail Mary draw or something like that. But this is one of the most staple cards. Like in a game where we don't have staples, this is pretty much a staple. 2 Dust in the Wind help you block. Tank, cancel character ability. Confronting Jedi, you're going to get huge speed pumps, so you might as well turn that into damage. Keiko's Aid is that faker breaker that we love. And then German Temper is another one. This is our only 3 diff, because again, we do have those 2 checks. But response remove, discard a character card. After your opponent plays a card as a form, discard it from their card pool. So I've used this to hate on like assets. You know, like if your opponent, I think they played Quan Chi's Fortress, so they played like a terrain, and it was like gonna kill my terrain or something. And I think my terrain was White House, and it hated on actions. I can't remember, but I wanted to keep something. So yeah, this one is pretty kooky. Not many decks can run it because you have to have a character card to discard. So very, very interesting stuff here. This deck does have to be on the life symbol. It's the only one that all 3 Mai's share. So to make it compliant with the new rules, it has to be a life symbol deck. And this is what I've got. Again, no sideboard. I really, you know, it's kind of hard enough to like prep a main board in Retro with how wide the format is. So just find cool cards you like, jam them in the sideboard, and let me know what you guys think of this one, because stacking is, you know, something we don't really do in Standard, and this character gets a huge payoff for it.